Hello. Um, it's been a long time since I've posted a video on YouTube, but I just wanted to come on here and reflect about some things. I looked at the first video that I posted about 3 years ago, and I just noticed in the comments section just a lot of very encouraging and um, very uplifting and edifying comments. So first off, I just wanted to say thank you for all of that. For those of you who watched the video, who gave me your time, and who took the time to respond with a comment. I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. It means a lot. I wanted to, as you know from the title of this video, I wanted to talk about something in particular, the leaving seminary. So I'll talk a little bit about me leaving seminary and then kind of what my experiences were in seminary. I'm not going to talk about why I left seminary because it's kind of one of those things that's very personal, and everyone's vocational discernment is very personal to them. And for me, my discernment's not over by any means, but it's just taking another direction. So that might look like married life, or religious life. I'm not sure yet, so we're just kind of looking to see, and it may even lead me back to seminary. I'm not sure. But I'm not going to talk about why I left seminary. What I am going to talk about is leaving seminary in general, and then also just kind of some of the experiences that I had in seminary that really lend themselves to me missing it a lot. What I miss about seminary and some of the things that I'm doing now. Leaving seminary in general. A lot of people leave seminary who go to college seminary. It's usually about half. So that is nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be worried about. And one of the rector of our seminary said, one of the biggest things that I remember is that some men go to seminary to find out that they're not called to priesthood. And so that is a very fulfilling and beautiful way to know that one is called to something else. In my personal opinion, I think really every man should give seminary a chance and should really consider discerning a vocation to the priesthood or to the religious life. Every Catholic man should consider that. Because our church needs it, and we are so short on priests and so short on religious vocations right now. And honestly, we just need stronger men to come out of seminary and to either be led to priesthood or led to strong fatherhood in the married life. So pardon me for my thoughts being kind of jumbled up. Recording on a phone is just kind of awkward, and I don't do this very often. So that's kind of leaving seminary in general. I don't want anybody to think that leaving seminary is something to be ashamed of, because it's not. Especially if the discernment was good and fruitful and was done with diligence and caution and prayer being the most important part of that. Somebody who prayerfully discerns out a seminary like I did, that is definitely never something to be ashamed of, and it is always something to be rejoiced in, because God is the one who's leading the way, and he's going to take you where he needs you to go. So rejoice in that. And if you're watching, maybe you are in seminary, maybe you are thinking about going to seminary, maybe you've been in seminary. This is just a word of encouragement to you. So it's just something to think about. But I wanted to talk about some of my experiences in seminary. Just three in particular. The first one is getting to know myself more. The second were the academics, and the third were the pastoral experiences that I had. So first off, getting to know myself more. If you want to get to know yourself well as a Catholic man, go to seminary. You will be under the watch of many priests, and they will tell you things about yourself that you just never knew, because they have the spiritual insight into watching the way that we live our lives. And that's actually a really good thing, because it teaches you where you need to grow, and how you should learn to better conduct yourself as a Catholic man. So one of the things that I got to know about myself was that I have a very strong heart for ministry with children, and that'll kind of go into the third experience that I'm going to talk about. But so I got to know that I have a very strong heart, very strong desire to minister to children and to young people, as well as to adults too. But just there's a certain I have a heart on my shirt, but there's a certain affection towards young people that just kind of draws me to serving them and to ministering to them and to kind of walking with them on their faith journey. And another thing that I learned about myself is I'm definitely an introvert. I know, seminary is full of house and community events, and you're around people all the time. And so I found great solace in kind of retreating to, my room at times for silence and for some deep prayer. And then another thing I learned about myself is I tend to be somewhat contemplative. I tend to prefer the more contemplative styles of prayer, and I tend to be a little bit more contemplative than active. So in my own religious discernment, it's kind of leading me towards looking at Benedictine life, Cistercian life, Carmelite life. So those are some of the things that I've thought about from my time in seminary, from learning about myself. So those are just, that's just an insight as to what you can learn about yourself. Academics, that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. Where I went to seminary, I'm not going to say where, but I got an amazing academic formation where I was at. I studied the classics. We studied primary sources, so church fathers, St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, St. Anselm. We spent a lot of time studying the Bible. And just the academic formation that I received was fantastic. I also wanted to say that I did graduate from college seminary, so I didn't discern out in the middle. They went ahead and allowed me to graduate, and I received my bachelor's in philosophy from the university where I was studying at for seminary. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for being able to study at no cost to me, and really just the people of God have been really gracious to me and to my brother seminarians at the time. So academic formation was just incredible. I don't really know what else to say about it other than you would get an academic formation that is just beyond what you could imagine going to a public school, going to most Catholic schools. It's a real gift. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about were pastoral experiences. Primarily, the pastoral ministry that I did, my first year I spent 3 years in seminary, so my first year was working with the elderly, which is ironically what I do now, but I was working with the elderly in a nursing home, and visiting with them, playing games with them, playing music for them, because I'm a guitar player, so I would bring my guitar and just kind of play music, and they would dance, and we would have just a great time. But also ministering to some of their emotional and spiritual needs. So I remember I had one lady who I worked with who was very, very depressed. And I remember just sitting down with her one time to talk to her, and she was, like I said, very depressed. But I remember bringing up the topic of what her favorite prayer was. And so she began to go into this kind of monologue about how much she loved to pray and some of her favorite prayers and how much she loved reading the Bible and how much she was proud of her grandkids, and it just really lifted her spirits. And so I saw that my presence in that situation, just being kind of a channel for God to work His grace, was a very beautiful thing. So that was kind of my first pastoral experience that I wanted to talk about. The second pastoral experience, I was an RCIA instructor at a parish, and a very large parish, and I remember teaching a couple classes. I taught one class on God's desire for human beings to be saved, and the class spent a lot of, I was very Augustinian in the class, so I talked a lot about St. Augustine, and I used one of his meditations from the Confessions along with some music, and darkened the room a bit. And I remember there were people who were crying at the end of the meditation because they were so moved by it. And the thing that was beautiful is that they weren't my words. I was just reading them out loud. But the power of the saints that you can employ in teaching the faithful, it's a very powerful thing, and God does amazing things through that. So that was another great gift that I'm really grateful for. And the final pastoral experience that I wanted to talk about was my last year in seminary, my senior year. Right before I graduated, I was a chaplain at a children's hospital, and I never wanted to do the children's hospital, just because I was so intimidated by the task. Because you're watching children and their families suffer in the hospital, and it's a sad thing to watch. But what I found was that when I would go into the room, I would naturally be drawn to conversation with the family, and with a lot of times the children were not verbal, but the children that were verbal, they just loved that someone came to visit them. And most of the children that I talked to were really fascinated by the faith. And I had this one child that I read the Bible to, and he just loved it. And we read Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And we read it in Spanish, and he was just so moved by it. And so him and I talked for about an hour, and it was just a great conversation and a great experience. And my heart will forever be touched by that experience that I had with this young child. So seminary overall, getting to have these experiences and remembering them and reflecting on them is a beautiful gift. And so, I guess at the end of the day, or at the end of the video, I should say, is that I am just, after having left seminary and had those experiences, I am so grateful for the gift that seminary was, and for that seminary is for young men. And I hope that more young men will be drawn to go into seminary or to religious life, and to be able to have these experiences, whether they're called to the priesthood or not. So, that being said, I want you to know that as a convert to the Catholic faith, who used to be against the Catholic Church, having gone into the heart of the Church in the seminary, and left out into the open world to being led on a mission to evangelize and be a witness to the faith, I want you, the listener of this video, to know that God truly loves you, and He wants the best for you, and that all of our peace can be found in the person of Jesus Christ. So, as you can tell, I'm spending this whole monologue, just kind of speaking off the top of my head, but I hope that the Holy Spirit has some inspiration in what I'm doing, and maybe these words will reach you at the heart, and maybe they won't, and that's okay too. But I'm not sure if I'm gonna make more videos or not, but I just wanted I just felt the prompting to come on here and just speak a little bit about my seminary experience and about my faith experience, and just give witness to, how God has worked in my life and how he continues to work in my life. So I don't think I have much more to say at this point. I just want to say, may God bless you and keep you. May he let his face shine upon you. May he lift his countenance upon you, and may he give you his peace. All right. God bless.